Hi, everyone, and here we are. It's Monday, and it's that time again for the Creature Code podcast. I'm Angel Morgan, and we are live on YouTube, Facebook with UPRN 107.7 in one of my favorite towns, New Orleans, and 105.3 on the Gulf Coast. And today we have an amazing guest. This person runs the gamut from the strange and unexplored to media. She is someone that I think everybody in our world has heard of, and she's just incredible. I feel so fortunate to have her here, and she's also one of those people who believed in me enough to bring me onto the network. So without further ado, I'm actually going to bring on our guest today, Michelle Desrochers. Hello, hello,
Hello.
hello.
How are you?
I am so good. If it wasn't for you, not only would I not be here, but I actually wouldn't be here today because I actually forgot to hit record.
I'm in the back
She's
recording.
like
Wait.
waving at me. She's waving. I'm like, what? And she's like, you're not recording. I'm like,
We're
oh,
not
okay.
live.
I owe you so. Thank God you're my guest today. Thank God you're my guest today.
Oh.
So, hi, Michelle. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. Thank you for having me.
Oh no, thank you for being here today. I'm really excited to have you. You are an incredibly special guest because there are so many people who know who you are, and for those of you who don't, you're about to. So tell people, please, Michelle, about who you are, how you got to be who you are, and what you do.
How I got to be who I am. I am just me. I don't know. But I have been an experiencer of what I call the highly strange my entire life. You know, had a lot of paranormal activity. I grew up around some of it pretty malevolent. I'm also an extraterrestrial experiencer, and I've learned to do the crossovers. I've had, small amount of cryptid, experiences as well. And I think we don't realize how everything melds together. So
Mhm.
it's sort of been um, my mission with everything going on was just to learn because I believe we are all students, despite spending 2 decades in media. I've never considered myself to be an expert that I've a producer so lovingly called me. I believe we're all students because we don't have the answers, especially when you're getting into things that are highly strange. Like there's just too many questions. And I have been fortunate enough to travel the world, and I've been able to, throughout many parts of the world, have incredible experiences there. And I love architecture and history, especially ancient history. It's probably the
Mm.
only course I did well in high school, where my professor wanted to keep my notes. It's like, wow, really? So, obviously, it's just where I went, and here I am.
It's you and I have had a very interesting conversation the first time we met on the Templar Nights, and I was astounded. Like I literally walked away with my mind blown with the amount of knowledge that you have and the amount of experience you have with different cultures. And everybody knows how much I absolutely love cultural mythology and lore and what have you. We have a lot of wonderful people here tonight. So let's just take a second before we continue. There was somebody who had a question, Michelle, the Outer Realm Radio, and we have Heidi Gull is here. Hi, Heidi, how are you? And Misha Kennedy. Your passion for old world architecture and travel has taken you incredible places. Is there a specific location or culture where you felt the veil between the worlds was thinnest?
Mhm. The ancient world has many places like that. I think the veil is thin, not so much in a location. I think, certain times a year we feel it everywhere. Some people will always tell you, oh, it's just Halloween, All Hallows Eve. Yeah, you start getting into some really deep solstice stuff, you realize it's probably in and around the end of December. It's just really highly active. I feel, however, places that are the most active. I mean, the whole world is ancient. At one point, I could say the ancient world, right? And different place, many battles, the plague. I've been to different countries, and I gone to places that meant something for me. So I would have had, and I have had incredible experiences in these locations. Do I have a favorite? I leave a piece of myself everywhere I go, and I bring a piece back with me. They're all wonderful. Nothing specific.
Is there a place where you have felt so connected, where you feel like, oh, I've been here before. I've been here in a past life. I know my story here.
Most of the places I've traveled to, because Egypt. Not, I mean, I've been to Greece. Have I had a past life there? I don't think so, but I won't say no. Romania, Scotland, England.
Oh, Romania, that is actually one of my bucket list places to do.
It's incredible. I felt a very strong connection there. I knew there was definitely something there, and I made a point of when my itinerary was done specifically for me to see certain places that I would resonate with, and I did each and every one of them. And there are many places like that. Going to where some of my lineage was in the south of France, in the northern part of France, going into God, I mean, you can go on and on. It's just, I purposely went to places I knew I would connect with.
Now, tell me how you got into the realm of the unexplained and the eerie, because I know that you love things like cryptids, right? And ufology, and that's what they call it, right? Ufology.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I was making sure I'm correct in that, because that's actually a new realm for me. This is a whole new area of study. We actually have a cryptozoologist who's going to be coming on the show in a couple of weeks, and I think that's going to be really excited. When it comes to things like that, like how did you fall into the more paranormal work, the more, cryptozoology, ufology?
Mhm.
Like, what is it about that drew you in?
I mean, that's hence my life. I mean, I've been seeing dead people since I was a child. My first recollections were probably the age of 4 or 5. And
Mm.
it wasn't discouraged in me. Like my family would pull out photos and say, the person you saw, do you see it out? And they would never lead me. And I would just go, yeah, that guy right there, dressed in his mortuary outfit, turned out to be a brother of my grandfather, right? And who had passed before then. Like highly strange things have happened in my family from a paranormal level. I mean, I would listen to my grandparents tell me stories for ages, for ages. And I had experiences even when they passed from both sides of my family. And then when I get back into the lineage stuff, I realize it's no wonder, So
I
like,
was I was actually going to be my next question is,
yeah.
do you feel this runs in your family, and who do you feel you got this from? Because I know for me, I always thought it was my mom's side of the family until I got to know my dad's
Yeah.
side of the family. And then it was like, oh, okay, you're creepier than they are. That's awesome. So what would you say that you're like, where that comes from for you in your lineage? Oh, we just lost sound. Oh dear. I don't know
I
if
got it.
that's
I'm all right. I'm all right.
Oh, there
I'm
we
all
go.
right.
We're
It's
back.
just
We're
me
back.
moving things out of my way. Um, like yourself, I felt that the majority came from my mother because my grandfather was an exceptional seer, as were amazingly the boys in the family more so. And then my mother, being the eldest female, there were, 6 kids in the family. And they adopted a cousin, who's when his father had passed in the war. So we basically, a family of 7 and very, very intuitive. Um, so I found out after, as I became an adult and got into this field, my father steps up. The guy who always said it was the house settling when something was going on steps up and says, "Oh, yeah, yeah. We see things like that all the time." What are you on
Oh,
about
thanks for
now?
sharing. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, you made me feel like I was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs when I was a child. And he just said no, and he would tell me about some of the paranormal experiences, and then he would start telling me about the UFO sightings. I grew up, up north,
Wow.
so aging myself a bit, only maybe one satellite in the 70s belonged to the US military. So we didn't see all of these flying things going on at night. And I mean, I watched a craft land one night, coming down over a mountain. I grew up in a valley and with a lake, and very fortunate to have grown up in an amazing place. But I find when you get into the paranormal, and because I had, pretty aggressive haunting that was happening, or attachment, because it was mostly happening around me,
Mm.
and not having internet to go to help yourself, I really had to train my mind. Was that for me, I work a lot with mindset and educating people as to what's going on, of not just, yes, it's paranormal. Let me take EVPs and take pictures and see if I get the $1 million piece of evidence. It's not
Right.
like that. It's a matter of looking at all the angles and teaching people how they could deal with it. Because at one time I had like a year and a half waiting list to go in personally, and it was too hard. And because I dealt strictly with malevolent stuff, it could take a month, it could take a year, it could take 5 years. Like, I never tried to take on more than 2 or 3 at a time to give all of my attention to, because I would get calls at every aspect
Okay,
of
so
the
this is a really interesting topic to me. So for you, um, I know for me that when I'm working with something like on a paranormal investigation or what have you, I have a series of questions I ask even before I go in, right? And those questions run from, are you on hallucinogenics? Anybody in your family in hallucinogenics? Are there mental illnesses? Are there to pair out? But when you do find those particular investigations or experiences or people with attachments or lower energies, for you, how do you tend to work with that? Because I mean, for me, I work with medicine people as well. So they have their ways of healing, they have their ways of doing extractions, exorcisms, if you want to call them that, what have
Sure.
you. How do you work? What is that? What's your take on that?
I've always, first off, I go in and I don't make you feel like you should be lucky I'm there to help you. I go in with the attitude of, thank you for, trusting me and entrusting your family to me. Let me take the weight for a while. Let's get this figured out.
Yeah.
And I look at, what is your religious background? Which way do you want to go?
Mhm.
Because it's like apples and oranges, with some things. I'm not going to go in and ask a Buddhist to do this. Hey, a Catholic's got it right. You want to work with them, like, for example, right? So I try to go down that route. I try to go down and look at the obvious. Do we have
We have
anybody?
a caller. We have a
Oh,
caller, so I'm going to answer that.
okay.
Hold on a second, because I won't
Yeah.
answer it the wrong way. Hi, you're on Creature Code Podcast. What's your question today? Hello? Oh, we lost. That's
All right.
okay. You
Yeah.
want to come back? It's either that or it was a telemarketer. One of the
Oh,
other.
either way,
So
surprise.
you were saying, I like that take though that you just said. Like, you would ask them which religion. We've had people like that. I used to work in this little store, and we did have someone who came in, and she was Russian Orthodox, and she had an actual Russian Orthodox priest attached to her. So,
Wow.
needless to say, this gentleman did not like who we were, and we told her, we said, "Listen, we could work with you, but the reality is you need someone from your own background, from your own place." And we worked with a lot of different people, so we sent her to the right person. But I think that's a really awakened and aware way of doing things. So religion does play a huge part in it. Because if you're
You
not
have to
aware
have
of it,
faith.
yeah.
You have to work with the faith of
Oh,
of people. If there's
shall we
nothing
try that one more
specific,
time?
yeah.
Shall we try this one more time?
Oh, I say do
Let's
it.
try this one more time. Sorry, not to be rude. Let's see. Hi, you're on Creature Code Podcast. What's your question today? Hello.
Hi, I'm like the guest and the host. Insights on the newly released files.
Newly released files of
UFO release files?
U.S. government's UAP or UFO files.
Ooh, is this Foggy Notion podcast?
It is indeed.
Hello. I was reading your
Hi,
question. I was just
Michael.
waiting for the
Hi.
appropriate moment to read your question.
Yeah.
So, Michelle, do you want to take that one?
Well, there's a lot of information
Oh.
coming out.
I'll jump off and watch.
I'm not getting a lot of, do you know what I'm going to do? Because I'm not really hearing you, Michelle, for some reason. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take your question and I'm going to say thank you. And then we're going to come back to Michelle to answer that. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. Go for it.
There's a lot of information coming out right now. I'm still actually filtering my way through it. I'll be doing a show on this with Constance Victoria Briggs next week, next
So what
Wednesday,
is
I
this? Because
believe.
I'm not aware.
Yeah. Well, basically, the United States government has decided that they've disclosed a bunch of their UFO files and extraterrestrial files. And yes, here we are. It exists. Those of us who are experiencers always knew they existed, but now the government and the military have come forward and said, yes,
Wow.
we've known all along. We've got all of this stuff. They're disclosing videos, they're disclosing accounts,
Wow.
they're disclosing reports. I'm still making my way through it because, like I said, I think it's next Wednesday. Let me just double check that real quick.
So that's incredible. So I'm finding that we are in a time now where things are coming out into the open. And I think that's really amazing that the government, the United States government, is actually coming forward with this. What prompted that?
Well, I mean, there have been governments all over the world who were doing it long before the United States, but the United States is a superpower. They're the leading, people look to the United States for this sort of thing. And I mean, what prompted it? A lot of pressure, from the UFO community. And they've said, like, enough is enough. Come on, we know it's there. There are a lot of people that have gone to Congress and whistleblowers have come forward and said, look, we all know it's there. We all work in the field. This has been going on for a really long time. I'm one of those people that sort of like when something big comes out, at certain times you have to look at what's going on behind the scenes that maybe they don't want you to, distraction. So I'm kind of two minds with that. But next Wednesday, just tune into the show because it's going to be all of that. And I will be more versed in what is there because I will have to be going over a lot of it. And I know somebody has done up a website, which I do have somewhere. Someone has done up a website and they have put all of this disclosure stuff on the website. So you could just put in what you want and it all comes up.
Nice.
So somebody's already ahead of the game with that.
Okay, so I want to take this other question from Foggy Notions podcast too, because I really, really like this since we're already here anyway. It says it was, where is it now? He said something about you being in the media and how you, as a media person or persona, feel about how ufology is portrayed.
I am more of a believer in all the world is a stage, not everything is as it seems. And I look at ufology, it's like any field of that nature. There's a lot that we're never going to know ever. They're never going to tell us everything, but it's a start. The fact that something is out there now, it's a start. How it's portrayed, when you have too many hands in the pot in any field, it's never going to go well. There's a lot of infighting, and media is there to distract. However, there are things that are always hidden in plain sight. You can look at different films. I watch it now. I will watch a series and I'll go, oh yeah, I see what you're doing with that. It's out there. They put it in plain sight. You just have to be aware of what you're watching.
And I think awareness in what we're watching is so important because I think we're being fed so much. We're being fed so much what's real and what's not. What is a distraction and what's there to educate. This is, I think, one of the reasons that you are so highly, highly successful and so highly, highly respected.
Thank you.
Is because you're here to share. You're here to educate. You're here to give accurate information. Whereas if you have to, we have to siphon through so much now. It's incredible to find a gem like you and your shows and this network, right? Because I don't know any host that I've either watched or been a guest with that isn't someone of integrity, right? And it's just such an incredible experience to know that. But I think you're absolutely right. Some of it is distraction. How do you feel about how much media is out there on the paranormal, on all of these things, whether it's cryptozoology or ufology or black magic or whatever the case might be? How do you feel about the absolute inundation of this that we have now?
I would rather watch a podcast.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, because the reason I know what I know is because I bring incredible people on the show, and they're sharing their research with me. And at the same time, if I want to ask intelligent questions, I have to do the research. I don't just sit there and just say, okay, hey, follow along and keep up with it. No, I try to do the research because I wanted dialogue. My shows are based on a very round table like feel, like sitting across from a friend and having a coffee and having a conversation. So that's two-sided. And because of that, it has allowed me to grow in my own knowledge, and I love to share it. But it's not like I'm the one out in the field getting it. I am sharing things that I have learned, and I can direct people to go look here, go look there. I like to research things that can easily be found online. I have a whole array of books and old articles, and I try to find it online so people who are online can find it and continue with that research themselves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
the media is a circus.
it truly is. And you've been doing this long enough to really understand and know that, because you definitely are an expert. I want to go back a little bit before the call, and we were talking about paranormal experiences in the sense of attachments and things like that, simply because Heidi has given us an interesting question that I would love to hear your take on. I have wondered about the possibility of pets being jumped or influenced by spirits. Our dog is so very passive, sweetest dog, a lover, definitely not a fighter. My daughter and I have both noticed, here it keeps going here, sudden weird changes, especially in her eyes. Her mannerisms are so different. Honestly, creeps me out. I've definitely been influenced by energies in this house. Thoughts? Sorry, off topic. Actually, no, it was a segue back to the original topic we were talking about. So thanks, Heidi. You cool. So what do you think? How do you feel about that?
We've come across pets who have had total jump-ins, attachments, because when you're dealing with, I can only speak from experiences I have had with the families and the people that I have helped or work with. Unfortunately, they go after the weakest link. And that's usually the ones who are pretty much silent, who can't speak for themselves. Easy to hide in a vessel like that. So when you see that, sometimes it's like that double-edged sword. An animal will react to something that's come into the space, but sometimes
Right.
they're not always reacting. Sometimes they're in trouble.
Yeah. And I think there are definite earmarks as to one or the other from my experiences, because the animals who are working with you now, from an animal communicator's perspective, I can also hear the differences, right? Feel the differences.
Yes.
But I find that most animals who are trying to work with you, trying to give you clues as to what's going on, you can really see that in their physicality, right? When they're trying to work with you and show you something, there's more of a timid, they're timid. They're trying to show you something with their body. Whereas animals who have been jumped, they just act like completely different creatures than they were before. Like the personality shift is a huge clue. I remember one time working with an item that I had just received, and I just wanted to see where it was going. And it was actually first thing in the morning, my eyes were closed, and all of a sudden, one of my dogs started to respond. She started to growl. She started to do all this kind of stuff. And the other one, who usually responds to her, stayed asleep. And he was having nightmares. And I'm like, oh, okay, I see where we're going with this.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I disconnected, bound it, did what I needed to do, they fell right back asleep. That's an assist, right? Whether it's a subconscious assist. I mean, the dogs aren't doing it consciously. But I have been in situations where, you walk in. Have you ever had that on a paranormal investigation? You walk in and you think it's one thing, it's something completely different. We had an investigation where we walked in once, and the what we thought it was going to be, which is a human experience, became very much an animal oriented experience. But have you ever had that happen where it's like one thing and then it just turned into something completely different?
I walked right into a film location to film a show, and we were told it was one thing, and it ended up being something highly aggressive, to the
Oh,
point that after the shoot was over, it followed numerous people home, including some of the crew. I was getting all
oh,
kinds of phone calls. Oh, yeah.
what'd you do about it? Like, obviously, they're going to turn to you, right?
I dealt with it.
Did you manage to work that one through? Like, what did
Yeah,
you?
I dealt with it. I dealt with
How
it.
do you deal with it? Is it different for every situation? Do you have like a little bag of tools that you work with? Like,
You
how
can you can go in remotely.
yeah.
You can do it remotely, and that's exactly what I did. I can't be in multiple places at a time. I had people who were living all over the place, going in from the city all the way out this neck of the woods and all the way out, another half hour the other way. And yeah, I just tapped in remotely, and I was able to secure every location.
So you do it energetically, like you actually tap in and do the work.
Yeah,
And
well,
that's crazy.
when everything happened and the whole world shut down for a while, that was it. I had actually retired from film just before then. No, actually, I did one more documentary after that, and then I stopped. And I started, getting into the podcast world, because I was in a radio station at one point, and then I syndicated to New Orleans, and now of course, the rest is history. I'm here. And I started working, with an RV, and we started getting into a different format. I would say I had done a handful of remote ones before, not a problem. But through lockdown, amazingly, the amount of messages I got were mind-blowing, because I think people were at home more, and they were
Right.
realizing, "I think the house is haunted."
Yeah,
Like,
right.
yeah,
You're
things
not
were
aware.
happening.
And sometimes it's so true though.
It
Sometimes
is.
you live in a place
Awareness.
and you just, you walk around, you're completely oblivious. And it isn't until you're confined in that space, you have to spend time in that space, then you actually sometimes I feel sorry for the ghosts. I'll be honest with you. I'm just like, I'm trying to get your attention. And we just walk around, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh,
So
yeah. Well, factoring the type of, you know, um locations, or people I've worked with, the type of hauntings that they were always more aggressive. It took a lot more time, and it was just easier to do with two people. So that's sort of where we explore. Things are still done remotely now. Again, I pretty much semi-retired from that. I do select work, and I do a lot of planetary stuff
what is
more
that?
than anything.
What
Well, I consider my light work, energy work. You
nice.
work with ley lines. You just work with certain areas that might be hyperactive, and you're just able to just calm down some of the energies. I work with a lot of different people, and all over the world. And then you get to
That's
watch the effects happen afterwards. It's just amazing, because you could just see people from certain areas just behaving differently.
mhm. That's
So
incredible. You
there's
just
a lot.
become more and more interesting as we speak.
I'm just a little ball of knowledge.
It's interesting because I work with distance work, and like you, I have clients who will come to me and ask me about this, and I find that for me, I had worked with a podcaster. His name was Sahas Chopra, and a lot of my clients come from a very specific culture. So I have a lot of Hindu clients, and I find that different cultures have a different way of looking at entity work, ghost work, attachments and what they mean. Like, I find that there is such a huge fear of this in
Mhm.
India that a lot of times it's not even valid, right? It's like my mother-in-law hates me, so she's throwing black magic at me. Oh, you know what? Whereas in Italy, it's a bring it
Oh,
on,
yeah,
bring
I'll
it on.
take
Come
it.
on, let's do
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
How do you feel about that? Like, have you worked? for you, like we talked about religion and working in different ways, but culturally, how do you feel about different cultures and how they feel about this? Right? Like you've worked with so many different people. You must have spoken with people who work with ufology in a different country and ghost work in a different country. How do you feel about the different cultural mindsets
You work with
about
the
the work?
mindset. You work
Sorry?
with you work with the mindset.
But do you find like
If it's
one cooler
outside
than
my
another?
wheelhouse, I'll learn it.
But do you find one like cooler than another or more
Sure.
interesting than another?
I'll give you an example
Yeah.
how every culture could be yin and yang. When I was in Egypt, I remember going we were talking about Tutankhamun. I had two different guides because I was fortunate to be in Cairo when the whole Tutankhamun exhibit was at home. So
Oh,
it was not traveling, everything in its entirety was there. And I remember talking to this older guide and talking about Tutankhamun, and oh boy, he went on about the curse like, don't even think about it, you'll be cursed. It was very extreme. And then I had a younger guy come up behind him who heard all that. He goes, "Oh my gosh." He goes, "Do not even go for that." He goes, I said, "I know." I know, so we just got talking about it, but it just showed the extremes between the
the
age
generations.
groups.
Yeah.
I've worked with families through the decades where, like you say, some of them are very extreme, hardcore, the mindset of, no, this country, again, Romania for an example, getting into witchcraft and hard freaking core stuff,
Mhm.
right? And the older people would be just like, oh man, the younger people like, meh, like just shrug it right off, they shrug it
I
right
think
off.
we're just desensitized because of Hollywood. I mean, I think that's partly it, right? Because I
Well,
think this
some of it.
generation, because of the
Some of
digital.
it. There's
Sorry?
some that's still there. I interviewed a lovely lady last week called Daniela Semina. Her mother, she was a fairy seer, she was a healer, and this
Mm,
was during the time of the whole communist regime that was in there, and you were not allowed to speak. And her grandmother would be very, very cautious, and they would talk about curses and healing and all kinds of things, and it had these different generations. She was like, my aunt would be full on like, I'll mess you up. Where my grandmother would be just like, is that what you want to be like?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
the balance. And that was very cultural. This is when they were all in Romania and they
Mm,
were going through all of this from the 70s, 80s. It was a very difficult time in the country and you
right.
could not be free to practice all of this. And now she goes, now I'm this woman and I'm living on this side of the world. And my grandmother lived to a ripe old age and I wish I had learned more.
Right. And you did yeah, I find those kids, those young people, such a blessing because those are the ones that really keep the old ways alive. And I
Yes.
find on my path, I find that they're not far and few between because I find a lot of this generation is very interested in it.
Yeah.
But I find far and few between those kids who aren't necessarily just looking for the present and for the future kind of work, like human design and Reiki and all of these things that actually sit and go, I want to learn the old ways. I want to know the old ways.
It's true. It's
Yeah.
true. It's something I've always been fascinated in because first off, I mean, I've had, great grandmother and great great grandmothers who were healers. So, I mean, I knew this ran in the family and I've always said, this isn't my time, this isn't my place. I belong somewhere else. I
Mhm.
belong in another time. And it's all stuff. Like I say, you've all got, people who are listening to me who know me have always heard me call the knowing. You just know. And I've always had this connection to anything that is old world. This is why my entire house is decorated old world
Yes.
because it's the one thing that makes me feel like I can still be in that time and place. So if you're connected, you will find a way. You'll find the
I
knowledge.
Oh, I agree with that, and I love it when young people come to me because that's one of the things that I thrive on is helping people gain confidence in their abilities. I always say to people, you're not developing your psychic abilities, you're remembering them, you're gaining confidence in them. And
Yeah.
I'm just helping you on that particular path. So I
Yeah.
love it when the young people come and they want to work, with the pendulum or with the poultice, and they want to understand, the ways of the grandmothers and the medicine people. I love that. I think it's just outstanding, right?
Yeah. Thank
We have Heidi. She's so cute. I love her. Huge fan too.
Thank
She's
you.
I love her. Now there was a really interesting. Here we go. Okay, so Foggy Notions podcast, full of questions. I love this person.
Michael, yes.
Michelle, what is your favorite topic to speak about in regards to the entirety? That's a lot. That's a big array of information. Regards to the entirety of your insights, what is your favorite topic?
Connecting all the dots, but I am really enjoying, and this is something Carol Ann and I we talked about this week, ironically enough, is connecting the dots with the ancient cultures and civilizations that really were all over the world. And evidence of it is literally everywhere. There's so much information, but connecting the dots on any topic, because I believe it's all there.
I don't know why this jumped into my head, but it totally, as soon as you said connecting the dots to ancient cultures, I got Atlantis.
Yes.
Tell me about what your thoughts for some, I'm so curious as to what your thoughts are about Atlantis and about that array of information.
Oh boy, with Atlantis.
Topic.
I know. I've done shows just on Atlantis.
Have you really?
Where they think it could be, things like that. I've interviewed so many people. I always go back to the Edgar Cayce readings, who he spoke very, in depth about Atlantis. And, there is a belief, and I lean this way, I really do, that perhaps Atlantis was not just one place.
Oh my God.
It was a civilization, different places. Yeah. And that's why we see so many similarities.
It's so funny. You completely and utterly read my mind, because as you were speaking and you said my belief system is, I'm like, she's going to say that it's in different places. Yeah. And the reason I say that is because when I started on my path years and years, almost 30 years ago, one of the things that started me was my interest in being a Maltese woman. And one of the things that I had read was that Malta was the tip of a mountain, and and this was the first time I'd heard this, that one of the places that Atlantis was, and they had mentioned that, was Malta. It was at the underside of Malta. And I'm like, that makes sense to me, that it wouldn't just be in one place. Right. And it makes sense to me that Malta would be one of those places because of the ancientness of
Malta is amazing for stuff like that. And it's got cave systems that have been closed off, where people have disappeared, entire classroom disappeared in this one cave system because they believe that there's a reptilian race there.
I don't doubt it. And it's so funny because my stance is that the jury is out for me on certain things, but when you say that, it resonates.
It does. They were here first. There's lots of evidence that they've been here.
Right. And even in Malta, they have what's called the Temple of the Oracle. And this temple was built in such a way that it was actually on the frequency of 111 hertz, which is the heart and the compassion. And they said what the priests would do is they do ritual there, and they would open up intuition there. And this is how they would do the healing work. And I'm sitting there going, this is the little island that I come from, that's my lineage. Like, is it surprising that I'm on this path and I love ancient magics so much? What do you're telling me a little bit about Malta, so I know you know a lot about Malta and that area. What do you think of that? What do you think of the cave, the Temple of Oracles and things like that?
Well, I think everything is based on frequency, and I mean, you could heal yourself on frequency. We should be. I mean, there was a reason. Let me back up. There's a reason that the powers that be shifted us from a 432, a strong connection with our planet, to a 440. They try to take you from source, and there's a certain 3-letter organization that deals with health that in March of 2026 came out and looked at frequency healing essentially as a class 1 method of healing. And I think we all know which organization I'm speaking of. And they have essentially just said yes. And they haven't disclosed that.
Do you think
And
they
it's
ever
there.
will?
Probably not as long as there are agendas. No. But I mean, Nikola Tesla worked with that, with frequencies. I work with frequencies all the time. Not just like for so much for healing, but just for protection and grounding and oh man.
Well,
When you get it and you can work with it, you can do amazing things with it.
and I agree with that. One of
Yeah.
the things that I was taught a very long time ago by medicine people from Peru was that the only limitation we have are the ones that we place on ourselves. And the second you truly understand that, you have access to limitless vibrations, limitless frequencies, and you can do anything that
Yes.
your imagination really desires.
100%.
Mr. M. Kennedy, Michelle, you've gained access to restricted ancient sites most people never see. What's the one discovery there that most strongly challenged mainstream history for you? These questions are so highly intelligent. These are beautiful questions.
Yes, Michael, he's been following a long time. Is sweetie. One place actually that I went into, and I'm sure it may be open now to the public because they've opened up more of the of the pyramid. It was when I was in the Great Pyramid of Giza, and they shut down the pyramid for me. They gave me about probably about 45 minutes in there on my own to just
Wow.
wander around. Oh yeah. Cost me a little bit, but that's all right. But I didn't expect that kind of treatment, to be honest. I was just asking for a few minutes, and that's where you really get into, where you really get into frequencies and so on. But after that was done, before they opened it up again for people to start coming back in, they directed me to another area that I went way, 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 way down, like literally down in, and which was allegedly the Queen's Chamber. So I don't really think that there were any burials in there personally, up or down, king or queen, but it was very fascinating considering all of the information that's coming forward now with the pyramid.
When you are on sites like that, and when you're on location, because you do have the ability to tap in, to see the dead, to work with the dead, what is that experience like?
I had one experience there and I was not trying, honestly. Like I went on a vacation and I came up and popped my head up in this chamber and there was a man standing there and I could tell like he was from, the community. I didn't know at the time. I didn't find out until a few days later when I was there that they were in the process of excavating a village from all the people who lived there who were building the pyramid, and this man was just there in this little white like a
tunic.
It's kind of not more bare up here,
Yeah.
just sort of open, and me thinking I'm all whimsical, trying to say you're dead in a very nice kind of way, in a nice kind of gentle way. I'm like, you're dead, you don't have to be here. And what I got essentially was, you're dead. I was like, it's me. I'm dead. Okay. And then I thought about it. How do I know I'm not? When the spirit's looking at you saying, no, it's you. I'm like, he's on the ethereal level and we're stuck on like planet Earth. I'm like, maybe it is. Maybe this is purgatory or something. I turned around, crawled my way back out of that thinking, I have to rethink everything.
Yeah, like I just had this existential moment with a ghost.
Exactly. And I've been put in my place, thinking I'm all whimsical.
But they do, right? It's amazing how many times I have had the good fortune of working with clients and I've learned from the spirits that come through. I love working with humans personally, but I prefer, and I know that it's the spirits that I'm giving voice to, right? So I always feel like in return, they give me these little nuggets or these little things that I need to go away and think about that actually will change my life, you know? So I completely understand. I love that. I love that story so much.
Yeah.
Have you ever had an experience where you kind of went, I can't, this is above my pay grade. I'm done. I can't, I don't want to do this. This is for somebody else.
Um, for the most part, like, people not so much in assisting a family because those kind of situations take years instead of months. And I will persevere. I will do it. And if I can't, I will find somebody who can. And I often will get asked to come on shows, for example, and they say, "Okay, you want to come on talk about this?" I'm like, "I don't know what the hell that is." Like, like, I haven't gotten that far yet. Like, so I am not afraid to say I don't know it all. I'm not afraid to say it at all, but when it comes to helping people, whether I can go the distance with them or whether I can connect them with somebody who can,
Right.
especially when we're dealing with time. I've had people where I'll back up. One time I had this woman who, you just have somebody, you have a haunted house and you just want as many people, as many opinions as possible, which is okay. But I was led there. Yeah, I was led there under false pretenses to start with, saying, "Oh, there's all this going on," because there's so many researchers out there who prefer just benign hauntings. They just want to help the family figure it out, help them coexist, get to know the spirits. I don't do those because I don't mind doing the other ones. It's just more my niche. But anyway, just so many people were messaging me after that, going, "Have you talked to this woman? What were your findings there?" I'm like, "Oh my God." I walked away because she kept saying, "Come back, come back." Or people who don't want to do the work. I had a woman whose husband passed and
Mhm.
she kept doing voice recordings in the house. I said, "I don't encourage it
Yeah.
because you're going to get something other than your husband because you're a target right now because you're grieving." And things got worse and worse and worse
Oh,
and
yeah.
worse. And I had to step away. I said, I can help you. I know I can fix this, not a problem, and would not stop. And it was 2 years after that. And she'd asked me to participate with a group of people in necromancing, trying to bring him through. And I went, "That's it for me."
Yeah. Thanks, but no, I appreciate
My
your offer.
boundaries. Yeah, it's just my
Yeah.
boundary. But thank you for that. When you need to lead this, nope, not happening. Not going to be a thing. Just
Yeah.
not my wheelhouse. And you need to speak to a voodoo person who can maybe do that. And that's not me. So, and 2 years after that, she said it was a long road, but I did it. I listened to everything you told me and I applied it
Oh,
and I did.
that's so good. That's so
Um,
good because I have had clients where
yeah.
I've had to kind of go, okay, I've done what I can for you. You have the information, you have the keys
Yes.
to move forward, but I
Yes.
can't do any more than I've done.
Yes.
Right. And unfortunately, I know one of them that did not end on a positive note.
Um,
But they're learning experiences too, right? For
yes.
us as workers on the other side or transition workers or whatever you want to call us, because there's really
Yeah.
no tangible name or label for it. Um, my learning there was that you can't help everyone. You can't save the world, right? And for I think for anybody out there who's listening right now, wherever you are, if you are on this path right now and you're just
Mm,
starting out on this path, that is one of the greatest learnings you can ever have, because if you learn that, you will end up helping more people in the
mhm.
long, right?
It's
So,
true. Wayne used to say that to me all the time because, you're one person. We had this talk just recently, actually. It goes like, you're one person.
mm,
And he plugged away at this for a couple of years now. And, he said, like, the people won't help themselves. And some do. I've had hardcore cases where some people just wouldn't. There's little, I was getting the same people coming back, and I said, like, I know. I would tap in. There's nothing. I'd be like, I know there's like nothing there. Like I know, but you become so dependent that it's easy for people to hear things or think they're hearing things and think that there's always something supernatural to it.
Yeah.
Like I've one of the reasons I left film was just because everything, oh my God, everything was a demon. Just say it. I say
Right.
5 things I'll give you 5 or 6 answers to every question. That's the one you go with. And I
Yeah.
got tired of it because there's so much more. Then people talk to me on an interview and go, that's not what I expected. What did you expect? The D word? It's like, no, no, I'm pretty logical. Like, I won't
Yeah.
say it's not. I know they're out there. I've seen it. I've lived it. I've had these experiences. But I also know that if you're going through menopause or puberty, you could
Yep.
be psychokinesing your butt all over the house and get some pretty scary stuff. That's what poltergeist type energy, which tends to be worse sometimes than
And
and
you
people
had
think,
mentioned it earlier, but you had mentioned it early too, that if we're not careful, we can call things to
sure.
us, right? Like the
Yeah.
reality is the vulnerable are the most susceptible to
Mhm.
these things. So you get somebody who goes through a trauma and now all of a sudden there's a doorway.
It's
And
hard.
I remember this girl, she had an attachment. The mother came to us and went, you have to help us, you have to help us, you have to help us. And a group of us went in, and right away, the woman who was leading it, she goes, you don't want us to do this. And she goes, why? She goes, she's going to call it right back. You're wasting your time here. And she's
Mhm.
like, no, she's my daughter. Go do it. It's okay. You're a friend. So we're going to do this.
Mhm.
We did what we needed to do. Right.
Mhm.
And after 3 days, we found out right back to where she was before.
Mhm.
She was subconsciously calling that back to herself because she was so dependent on that type of energy that she needed it now to exist.
I've seen it. I've seen it happen so many times. I watched a 14-year-old girl so convinced that this really malevolent entity was just all about her. She goes, "I can make him do anything I want." I said, "I bet you can't."
Yeah.
Because she could move
Pets.
move the glass around by herself, and at one point she goes to move it, and I went like this, and the thing stopped, and I went like this, and it came to me. I said, "Stronger than what you're thinking you're going through right now, because I can pull it from you."
Yeah.
Where she thought that, but it stopped completely. I said, "So you're going through things." Like her demeanor had gone really, really dark, and I'm just like, "There's no care here."
Yeah. Well,
You
there's
know?
also something else too, that people think that there's power in the darkness, right? They think that and that's what I think the darkness really depends on, is that illusion that we have of what power really is. And then someone like you walks in, who's filled with this light, and that's true power, right?
I can work both sides.
Yes,
There is power in darkness. I mean, you can
there is
apply
power.
any of that,
Okay,
but
there's a good question.
there's more power in light.
Okay, exactly. That was going to be my question. Do you
Yeah,
feel that which is it for you that has the most power, though? Is that of the light or is that in the darkness?
I have a balance. I have a balance. I've had people say to me through mediumship, people who've met me, and I had a spirit painting done when I was in Lilydale one year, and it fell back on some of the exact same thing I've been hearing for years. It's just that you walk two sides of this line, and they did it as above so below, right? The tree up and down, and I'm just like, but you have to have responsibility, because I've always embraced the balance,
Mhm.
but I worked in dark things,
Yes.
right? So I realized there had to be a balance with that. And I chose to embrace light work. I tend to lean that way. And I choose to apply that, because I mean, if you can work with darkness, light is a no-brainer.
And I think that's the thing, right? I think light flows better. I struggled for so many years making that decision. I
It's hard.
was under the illusion that darkness was all power, and that,
Mhm.
the light was like, that's for fluff bunny holistic work. But I think you're absolutely correct that there's a beautiful balance in that,
There
and that
has
can
to
be
be
utilized in
balance.
tandem. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, believe me, I'm sure I've tacked on some karma for some of the dark energy I've worked with. But
And it's so nice to hear somebody else say that. It's just like, I look back on when I started, and I'm
yeah.
just like, wow, how did I get away with that?
I
Like,
think when you're
how did I?
younger, you embrace it more when you're younger because you've got
Yeah,
your energy's different. So you're PKing at the same time. So you got all kinds of stuff going on. You're
yeah,
embracing it more. But at some point, like even when I lived with this entity in my space, this attachment, by the time I was like 18, I'm just like, okay, you know what? This ends now. Because I had gone, probably between 4 and 6 years of this nonsense. And I just went, that's it now. And I educated myself because, like I said, it's not like I could get on the internet and go, "Hey, Noreen Warren, anybody," there wasn't that we had access to, even though there have been paranormal researchers since the 1800s, like, and some just called different things. You can get into different things like that quite easily. But when you make that decision, and this is what I've always tried to tell people, when you finally make the decision and take back your power, that's where it ends. That's
I
where it
agree.
ends.
I agree. So did you, well, before I ask this question, Sophia, my heart, my soul, I love her so much. Do you feel pulled by the dark? If someone makes the decision to work in the light, does the dark try to pull you anymore?
Yes, 100%. It's a tug of war. I lived my life in a tug of war for a really long time before, and then I had children. And I was like, that's it.
Oh my God, I can't believe you just said that,
Yeah,
because that was, I love my child. I do, I
yeah,
truly do. But I always say that having him was my Achilles heel, because
it's true.
that is the most vulnerable part of who I am. So now I have
It
to be
is.
careful,
It
right? And
is.
that's what keeps me really on track.
And that's what grounds you, and that's what puts things in perspective. Then you turn into a mother bear and you realize, like, I will kick your ass. I don't care every which way to Sunday. It doesn't matter what you are. And I've had so many experiences where things have come in.
Yeah,
And and I'm just like, that's it. You were in my space. Now it's just gonna get ugly. And I did. I had to Fort Knox the house, and I did.
right,
But
right.
being an ET experiencer from a young age, learning only in recent years that they're very, very much connected to the point where some people believe they're one and the same. And I know, going back into lineage and having spoken to my parents, about the all the ET stuff, I question now how much of it was extraterrestrial contact and how much of it was paranormal. Because I'll give you some examples. When
Mhm.
you're dealing with malevolent energies, you'll say, oh, foul smells, scratching and popping sounds, flashes of light, and sleep paralysis. Yep. And the exact same thing happens during an extraterrestrial abduction.
Interesting.
Exact, exact, exact.
So how
Yes.
do you tell the difference then?
Right? Well, I mean, now, because once I became aware of that, when I tap into what's around me, I know the difference of what one thing should feel in comparison to the other. Back then, I didn't remember from the young age of my ET experiences, but now I'm just like, things have started coming back because I'm still an experiencer. I still have experiences with ET
Right.
and all kinds of them. So now, and I know I don't have anything malevolent in the house.
So Sophia also asks another kind of cool question. She's all about kids. Do your children or child have the same abilities you do? Do they support and understand you?
Yes, 100%. My youngest has had all kinds of experiences. He's just sort of in denial. Nope, don't do any of that. My second had surpassed me even in some of the things he could see, because he could see dimensionally.
Mhm.
And even as a youngster, and he'd be just like, do you not see all these people in here? Fuck, if I had things in this house, I would know it. Dang it. It was frustrating for me. And he's like 8 and pointing, and he's going like, I'm telling you. And my daughter, very clairaudient, very clairvoyant, all of it. And I hear her struggle sometimes. At one point she was like 14 or 15, and she could PK like nobody's business. I was like, stop it. You're just projecting all this stuff. You're killing me. And at the middle of the night, sometimes I hear her and she would just be, would you all just shut the heck up and let me get some darn sleep? And I'd be like, poor thing. I made the mistake of going through that same thing when I was her age, and I asked to shut it off. It wasn't until later years where and even now I get bits and pieces. I don't hear it all in real time like I used to, because I didn't know at that time how to shut it off. And
Right.
it was driving me crazy. And at some
Right.
point it just went enough and I blocked it.
Does it ever concern you that they have these abilities because you chose this path and you know who you are and that kind of thing? And yes, you're there for them as well now, to be
Mhm.
their guide, to be their
Yeah.
rock. But does it ever concern you that because they have these abilities, they're on the radar? They just are.
Yes. All the time. All the time. My middle son's just kind of too cool for it. But he's wise. Like when he started doing rugby and judo, I was like, no, I don't do that stuff. Like, okay, we'll go with that. But he's wise. Like he quietly would research, and he would recognize things and see things for what they were, and we would have discussions about it. Whereas when he was really young, I remember him being like 6 or 7, coming to me, maybe even 8, saying, I think I need to go to Egypt and you need to come with me. I had already been, and I'm just like, oh, not really good place at the moment. Like, we have to work it out.
And have you ever traveled with your kids? Have you ever done this kind of work with your kids?
I mean, my daughter and I, a little bit. My son, that one son, we went to Europe together. Like
Nice.
we started off in Scotland, made our way down to the south of France, and spent some time. And again, a lot of lineage stuff.
I
And
was just going to say that must have been so exciting for you to have your child with you.
oh yeah, well he insisted. He insisted. He goes, "We need to go right now." He was so impatient. I said, "If you give me some time, I will meet people who literally run and live at this entire place." And he's looking at me, he's going, "I don't really want to wait." I'm going, then it's going to be harder to do, but we'll do it. And we went. And sure enough, now I know so many people who live at this place, that this town, and who have access to all the things he wanted to see behind the scenes. And I'm just like, you don't listen to me, never. Why do we not listen to the mothers? We all know what's happened.
Not just the mother, the psychic mother.
Yeah, right.
Like, hello.
Listen to the parent.
This is such a fun conversation to have with another psychic mom.
Thanks.
My son used to call them my monster moms. So monster moms would get together,
Ouch.
right? Yeah, no, it was great. It was always lovingly. And I used to work in this little store called the Hedge Witch. And so we had witches, we had seers, we had communicators, we had all the different levels. So he never really knew what to call us because we're so eclectic in who they are. So we were the monster moms. And I loved that. So whenever I have these amazing, because my son, like, I hear you, and it's so comforting because I'm like, okay, then you know what? I'm normal. I feel the same things. But when my child was little, like my child, actually, I remember sitting, I kid you not, I was sitting at the table, I'm hearing him murmuring, like talking in his room. And I said, Joseph, I said, what are you doing? And he turns and comes and he goes, oh, I'm talking to Sedna, mommy. And at that point, I didn't know who Sedna was. I'm like, Sedna, who's a Sedna? I'm thinking, oh, here we go. And he goes, would you like to see what she taught me? And I'm like, yeah, I would love to see what she taught you. So I'm going to make it snow. And he goes to the window and he starts murmuring under his breath, and it began to snow.
Yes.
And then he goes, no, it gets better, mom. It gets better, mom. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he goes, watch. And he put his finger on the window. And I remember it iced over. And I thought, wow, that I don't even know what to say. So in one way, I was elated because my son was showing these abilities, connecting all these. And another, I'm like, who is this Sedna stranger? Stranger danger, right?
Who is this person?
Who is this person? So I love to hear these stories from other esoterics and other energetics, because it's like, wow, I'm not alone. I'm not crazy. Like our kids had experiences. We've had experiences, right? That we can share with them, but it's okay to still be worried about them.
Well, I made a decision when I had or decided to have children that I would shut down. And I did.
Wait, sorry, say that again. Sorry, I was just reading that. Like,
to shut down my abilities as much as I could when I decided to have children, because I grew up with that mix, and I didn't want them to grow up with that mix.
right.
But I didn't bank on the fact that they would be full on being able, that they were active kids, like they could really see things.
Yes.
And then I'm like, all right, so I had to sort of start tuning back in
Right.
just to keep track of
To
what.
navigate them. Yeah, to help
Yes.
them.
Yes.
With Jay, he's an animal communicator, and he can communicate circles around me.
Yeah.
And very much a charmed one. He can have whatever he wants. So for me, it was always kind of, just because you can have it doesn't mean you should, right? And if you ever have a thought or something you want to say, come to me first before you
Yeah.
say something to someone, to make sure that they're okay to talk to, right? Because in the time he grew up, we were
Yes.
just becoming more open and mainstream with this kind of thing. I remember one time they called me from the school and they said, listen, we're doing this barbecue. Would you like to come and do some readings? And I'm like, oh, I have no idea what you're talking about. And she turns to me and she goes, I'm sorry, but the cat's out of the bag. So you want to come, you don't want to come, but we all know.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Right.
oh, okay. So it was fun growing up being a monster mom.
Yes.
We loved it. We had a great time. But there were times when you're just like, okay, I'm really glad I'm on this path because I can help him. Because I get so many parents who come to me with their kids or their teenagers, and they just don't know what to do with it.
You don't. The one thing I regret, I think, was all the filming I've done, because it took me into a different path. And what I mean was being really, really busy, and my kids felt that, with being just the traveling and I mean, there were times where we were filming so much, and it is time consuming, and at that point, I think they lacked a little bit of having more of my guidance, because, I did not expect when I got into the field that it would, that I would be sought out as much as I was. And, started off with a colleague that I parted ways with, and it still went on, and it got heavier and heavier. So, it's just when I decided to retire, that was it. And then, of course, welcomed a grandchild, and that was the end.
Well,
Yeah.
oh, you're a grandma. You don't look old enough to be a grandma. Holy mackerel.
Thank
That's
you.
hot. Congratulations.
Thank you. But yes, I
You know
am. Believe me, I am.
My mentor once said to me, she said, no matter what you do with your life, she said, if you go down this path of being on stage and media and that kind of thing, she goes, never forget one thing. And I said, what's that? And she said, 1 foot here and 1 foot there. Right?
That's true.
So for me, that was instilled. My family, my real family, was the family I grew up with at the Hedgewitch. I never understood that there were people like me out there, that there were women like me out there who could be empowered, who could feel their power and be okay with that.
Yeah.
And I learned so much from them that I don't think I would be here today. So do you yourself feel that you had a tribe that guided you? We're talking about our children. What about you? Did you have mentors? Did you have a tribe? Did you have those kinds of experiences?
You know what? I never really leaned to anybody. The time that I got started, like I said, we didn't have internet. We didn't have anything like that. So to try to find mentors, I sort of felt my way through, and I instinctively, again, you go down certain paths, and then it was always on this balance level for me. And then I remember meeting Lorraine Warren, because we worked in the same type of cases. And I hate to say the word case because people aren't cases, but I remember she said, I think I had a lot of bad raps for things, and I did not know her super well. I've met her a couple of times. I've been to her home. And the one thing that she said that stuck with me and never left me, she said, dear, we're all just students. Never forget. We're all just students and never stop learning.
Mm.
And I never stop learning. There's not one day that goes by where I will not learn at least one thing. And when you start putting all that together and you start realizing the knowledge that's out there and how you just take it in. So that stuck with me. Just that one comment, dear, we're all students.
And
Never forget
it's
it.
that one comment, right?
One
That
comment.
one thing. I
Yeah.
find that for me, when we learn, we're guided to our learnings. Because as I was saying earlier in the program, I love being that voice of the ancestors and voice of the spirits. And I
Yes.
find that the more I listen, the more I learn, the more I'm guided to the right,
Yeah.
cases and the right people and the right where I did a show just the other day and I thought, okay, I've done a show like every other show and that kind of thing, but there was something different about this.
Mhm.
And on Saturday, I went thrifting in the morning, which I never do. And I went thrifting, and as I went down the aisles, these items started coming to me. And I would go into my best friend, Gemini AI, and I would ask, what are these things? And
Yeah.
one was protections amulet, and one of them was a jaguar jar from Peru. And that's
Wow.
spirit, that's my power animal.
Yeah.
And that night, I remember standing backstage and going, what the hell? What am I going to do tonight? Like, what? I have no idea. You usually download by now. They're like, it's okay. Just, and it ended up being a healing circle. And we took that jar and we put all of the people's needs to be healed into this jar. And we did all these things. And the amount that I learned that night
Yeah.
was massive about myself, about them,
Mhm.
about what I could do, about spirit, about who was with us, and all of these different things. And I
Yeah.
find that throughout my career and my life, my calling, because I don't like calling it a career, my calling, that every time I'm open to just listening, it just
Mhm.
takes me to the most wonderous places. How do you
Mhm.
feel about that?
I actually agree with you, and it's so funny because every time you talk about Peru, because that's where I have, like, some of my line went through Peru, and my crystal skull that I got was from Peru. I always thought I would get one from Brazil, and I kept getting pulled back to the one from Peru, which is very unusual, and, then I realized, "Oh my god, yeah, it's this lineage thing." So I just think that you will end up where you're supposed to. If there's an item out there that you need to connect with, you will. A
Yeah.
person, it doesn't matter. I'm a huge believer in synchronicities. I'm a non-believer in coincidence.
Yeah.
And I
Exactly.
so look at synchronicities, and when you start to see them, you realize they're happening around you all the time. All the time.
I
Yeah.
agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
What is the scariest, as we're shutting down, as we're coming to the end here, what is the scariest and or the most amazing experience you have had? Because you've had some wild experiences.
Oh god, yeah. You know,
I love the way you said, "Oh god, yeah." I
I
wish I
have been to
could do
some incredible places, and, I had a malevolent entity appear to me when I was probably about, I don't know, 14, just kinda came up, rose up at the end of my bed, middle of the night, and I was just kind of like, "Oh boy, that's a thing," and well, okay, I was always taught, like my grandfather always taught me, he said, "Don't ever give it to them. You can feel it inside, don't ever give it to them." And I remained completely calm during that experience. I've
that.
had experiences where things have phoned me, um, growling at me, calling me every name in the book.
Doesn't it ever
First
scare
time
you?
I Huh?
Doesn't it ever scare you?
No, no, it startled me. The first time it ever happened to me, um, the homeowner of this location that I had been to, she goes, "I just have to go outside for a minute. I gotta drop this in the post." Like, it was just right at the end of her driveway, she said, "Because the post guy's coming." And I heard her go down the back staircase because it was just like the old servant stairs, right? All of a sudden, her dog started going crazy, and something picked up the phone. I could hear the phone being messed with, and if the dogs weren't going crazy, and, I would have thought maybe she had somebody else in the house. right? The dogs were off their nuts. She had a Doberman, she had a couple of Chihuahuas, she had like an Afghan, and they were all of them just going to town. I'm like, oh my God, it's deafening. Something picks up the phone, growls at me, and calls me an F and C.
Oh, nice.
The best I could do, I was so startled because it's never happened to me before. The best I could come up with is you're a freaking potty mouth. It's the best I could do.
Good comeback.
And I thought to myself, potty mouth, that's the best I could do in this situation. Oh my gosh. And that was it. And from that time on, this thing would start calling and leaving messages.
Wow.
It visited me at my home a couple of times. And
So how did you disconnect? How did you get rid of it?
Acknowledgement is empowerment. It showed up one night. I woke up out of a dead sleep and I just realized something's here. I went downstairs, which was pitch black, and that term darker than dark, blacker than black. So I had this big leather chair sitting in the corner and I could see it sitting there. And I sat down on the sofa and I said, "What?" And I could hear her. And I just said, "Don't let the door hit you on the way out." I got up, I went right back upstairs to bed. And I heard this loud, boom, like I'm surprised the house didn't shake. I'm surprised nobody woke up. And it was just gone. But it was this loud boom, like a sonic boom within my confined space, right? It was a fair-sized house, so it would have echoed, I thought, anything. And it never did. And from that point, I never got any more visits. And it took about, I would say, 10 years where it resurfaced again, brought to my attention from another researcher. And then my team and I went in remotely and just devastated the whole house, knocked everything out of there, including that one.
Wow.
Sometimes it takes me a while, but I will get your ass.
I love hearing stories from people like you, but you tell them so well.
Oh, thanks. My obnoxiousness. Yeah.
I have to say, I think one of the scariest things that Michelle had to deal with was when energy came after her daughter after dealing with a case she was on. Is this the same entity?
No. This was an entity that also decades later, our team went in and literally took care of. It was a different location that we went to in Muskoka, actually. It was an old trading post, and there was a whole backstory to it. It really took a long time. Anyway, we cleared the majority of the house, and this is when we were on site, and nobody told us there was a whole back part of the house, because it was, when you drove up to it, it was all under the forest and the trees. You didn't see it when you came up around the front. And when we were leaving, and I looked over and I went, oh my gosh, there was the back part is even bigger than the front. So everything just migrated to the back. So anyway, by this point, it was 3 a.m. We've been witnessing some crazy things and had some Wendigo activity.
Oh, wow.
And oh yeah, it was crazy because it sounds like a Xena war cry was going on at 3 a.m. in the middle of the forest. And we had one of our Indigenous team members, and he was always so calm. And he had this really quaint little voice, and he just sat there and he went, "That is a Wendigo," just like that.
Wow.
Wonderful, freaking wonderful. Thank you for that. Yeah. Wow. Anyway, very calm, cool, and collective. Never even flinched. So anyway, we were set to go back. We had cleared 2 houses that night, same entity, and one house remained, for the most part clear. She had to keep working it because it was she got infected because she was helping the main house. She was helping that family. Anyway, yeah, my daughter completely lost her vision for exactly 1 month. And it turned out that the family did not want us to return. So I thought, okay, that's obviously it's a sign. I will try to work with them remotely or try to refer them to somebody. They did not want to do anything. I think they just got so freaked out, because things amped up. Because sometimes they'll amp up and they'll keep, if you leave them alone, your life you think is getting better, but it doesn't. It does get worse. The oppression gets heavier. But anyway, that was the end of that. And we took her to every specialist, CAT scans. I mean, and everything. She'd been through everything, and went from perfect vision, and then one, this voice came to me, and then I'm like, what do you want? And just go stay away. In my mind, I'm like, they don't want us to come back. I went, okay. She comes downstairs the next morning. She goes, I can see.
Wow.
Never got her 20/20 vision back though.
Wow. Yeah, the scars, battle scars.
It took my doctor to say to me, he said, what have you worked on lately? And I went, I know exactly what it is. And he went, I think you have your answer. That's my medical doctor.
Wow, that's
who arranged all these tests for her. And sure
and
enough.
that's the thing. Once you rule out the practical, right, you then can go to the spiritual, and that's that's that balance we were talking about.
Process of elimination.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for being with me today. I feel so honored and privileged. Your stories are phenomenal. If people, like the majority of people here, know who you are, because who does not? How do we?
There are many, believe it or not.
Tell us about your other shows and where people can find you and where they can watch you.
Okay. Tonight, Two Real Cryptid Legends with Ron Moorhead and Daryl Denton, myself. It's going to be always a great show. Beyond the Outer Realm tomorrow, 2 p.m. Jeremy Spillane, more paranormal. He apparently has proof of life after death through photos and such. And
I could just talk to you for hours. You say something and I'm like, oh yeah, I could talk about this. Oh yeah, this happened. Oh yeah, this person.
I might have to do a part.
I'm gonna have to bring you back. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. We will talk to you very, very soon. Have a great show tonight. Have a great show tomorrow. And thank you.
Bye everyone.
Wait. All right. So thank you, everyone, for being here today. Michelle Desrochers was absolutely phenomenal. If you want to know anything more about me, my website is brand new. I would love for people to take a look at it, take a see, and it's raisingenergy.com. You can also follow me on Raising Energy on Instagram, Facebook, and wherever you are. If you're listening, we're here to educate, to have fun, to tell stories. Please join us next week and on all our shows at UPRN 107.3 in New Orleans and 105.3 on the Gulf Coast. Signing off, everybody. Have a great night.